Spotify is getting bought by Netflix. I don't know how else to say it. Huge news again today. Netflix making waves in the podcast game. Just picked up the number one sports podcast, Pardon My Take, as an exclusive video show. Will be on Netflix Airways now, or the Netflix Airways, like we're speaking broadcast terms. But that's what they're trying to turn it into, is be one of the main broadcast companies. What's where we're headed, people. Streaming is dead. The golden age of streaming is officially dead. Now your favorite sports podcast, Pardon My Take, which, like them or love them, Barstool has really pioneered the sports podcasting game since 2016 when Pardon My Take came onto the scene, and they've been number one since, covering mainly football and basketball, a little bit of baseball, a little bit of golf. That's kind of the joke. They don't really talk anything about soccer or a lot of these other sports. But anyways, nevertheless, they will no longer be on YouTube. And it's kind of a big deal because they started out as an audio only show, moved to YouTube after Barstool Gold failed, which they were trying to get their video behind a paywall, and that didn't work out for them first. So it's just kind of interesting. They're following The Ringer, which Bill Simmons, the other pioneer from Spotify, basically sold his network of shows to Spotify for them to only pretty much strike a deal with Netflix, and pulled all of his shows off of YouTube a few months ago. I'd be really interested to know how much the viewership has dipped. I was never a huge Bill Simmons guy since he left ESPN. Would occasionally, see the clips and follow him on social media. That being said, last year in the NBA season, I watched more Bill Simmons content than I ever had. He had Ryan Russillo on his network as well, and they used to do a Sunday night pod that I would tap into consistently, as Ryan Russillo was my favorite NBA analyst, and he does a lot of college football and NFL as well from the days at ESPN with him and Scott Van Pelt, SVP, and Russillo, which is interesting because Russillo just left to go to Barstool a few months ago. In between this Ringer announcing they're going to Netflix deal, Russillo says, okay, I'm not going to be a part of that. I'm going to go join Barstool. And then, oh, by the way, Barstool takes the Russillo show, Pardon My Take, and Spittin Chiclets, which is, as far as I'm concerned, the only hockey podcast that has any type of following or listenership. They are pretty much a monopoly in the hockey space. Sorry if I'm leaving out a bunch of other shows. I'm a new hockey fan here, so I really don't know what I'm talking about in the world of hockey media, but they are by far the biggest. Ryan Whitney, who has been a Barstool guy since day one, him and Paul Bissonnette, blanket on the other guy's name. Anyways, so those are the three shows that Barstool is taking to Netflix, just video only. Obviously, Spotify and Apple audio only shows will be there, but it really begs the question of, now that we've seen two of the largest independent media networks ran by two of the most controversial, like them or love them, are going to tell you how it is, media executives at this point, which is Bill Simmons and Dave Portnoy, saying, hey, we're going to go take a gamble with Netflix and leave YouTube, which to me, I think is crazy given the amount of reach that YouTube has right now, the algorithmic discovery that YouTube has, and they're by far the biggest connected TV app. And it's not even close. They almost double Netflix users. And plus everybody has it on their phones, and it's a Google product, and it's the second biggest search engine in the world. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. The math is not math. And so where my mind has been at in the last few days is, I've been a Pardon My Take listener since 2016. I listen predominantly on Spotify. I catch the video clips on YouTube every once in a while. Every once in a while, I'll watch a full YouTube episode there. That being said, I listen to the audio only show. That's how I got into their show. It's really a huge, they were a huge inspiration for me ever wanting to work in media, to work in podcasting. So the video, so for me, this isn't that big of a deal. That being said, I feel like they're selling out their fans. They're putting their video content behind a paywall. They're doing everything that they said they wouldn't do throughout their entire time. That being said, the excuse that they made was, we want the producers to get paid more, yada yada yada, which I'm kind of here for. But I don't think that was the real reason. And I think the real reason is, I'm totally speculating here. I don't know anybody that works at either of these companies, but I think Spotify is gearing up to buy Netflix, or Netflix is gearing up to buy Spotify. All signs point to that, because I just don't believe that Spotify is going to, or as Netflix is going to sit here and say, well, we're just okay with only getting the video audience from these massive shows. And they just signed the Breakfast Club for 2026. Because there's a huge, push towards video and podcasting, and it's really got the whole entire podcast industry divided and upset, and the true audio truthers are flabbergasted by every podcast needs to have video, and there's just this big audio versus video war going on in the podcast industry. And um I some of these shows are just glorified Zoom calls, doing exactly what I'm doing today. But people are okay with it, and they're okay with it watching it on their connected TV. They're okay with watching it in traffic. So it's really popped up everywhere. They're using their phones, they're using their connected TVs, they're using their tablets, their iPads to watch these shows. That being said, you have a huge sub portion that are still audio only, that are watching it on or listening on a run. Listening while they're doing the dishes, while they're doing their chores. So I don't know. I just find it really interesting that Netflix is taking this gamble and saying, hey, we think that people are going to watch this content in our app on their connected TV, which, I think it's a bet at the younger generation. Like, my 6-year-old nephew watches a streamer on Amazon Prime who got his start on Twitch and YouTube, ended up getting a deal, crossed over, and he's not allowed to watch YouTube, but he had found the loophole of finding Preston Plays Minecraft on Amazon Prime or whatever streamer that it's on. I think it's on Amazon Prime, and that's what he watches. That's his go-to show, and he's like, he's found this loophole with his parents and been like, all right, this is what I'm going to do. So I don't know. I just find it really interesting, though, that Netflix is going to be okay with all of these audio only listeners, and I really think that they're just going to say, "Hey, we're gonna swoop in, gobble up Spotify," and whether it's a true partnership or a bundle, it just, at this point, it doesn't make any sense for them not to basically be one company, or basically be one media entity at this point, because if you're going to literally run a monopoly on sports right now, which that's kind of what they're doing, is now The Ringer, I would believe, has the 3 biggest basketball podcasts that true hoop fans listen to, which is the Zach Lowe Show, which The Ringer, scooped him up after ESPN let him go for God knows why. Everybody loves Zach Lowe. You talk to any NBA fan, they'll tell you Zach Lowe is one of the best, if not the best, basketball analyst and news coverer, breaker, whatever you want to call it. I don't think he's a true journalist, but everybody loves Zach Lowe. Ringer scoops him up. Bill Simmons has had a cult following since he left ESPN 10 years ago. Now Ryan Russillo, also a huge cult following there. Now that Ryan's not at the Ringer, but now he's also a part of Netflix. So are they coworkers again? Who knows? So they have basically the biggest football show now with Pardon My Take. They also have the Todd McShay show from the Ringer, who I would say is probably the most respected draft analyst that is going. And draft. Talk about draft content. That's one of the biggest subsections of sports media, is NFL draft content, and Todd McShay is probably number one at that. Now they have, Pardon My Take, which has been the number one football podcast and the number one sports podcast almost 10 years running since their existence, coming to their video airways. So it only signals to me that this is a Spotify Netflix, merger. And like I said, Spittin Chiclets, number one hockey podcast by far. There's not even a close second. So they're bringing all of this talent onto the Netflix, streaming platform. And I still, as much as if this is a bigger deal with Spotify, I can see it. At the same time, I just don't understand why you would leave YouTube, because just to take if you're the shows, like, I don't understand why you would leave YouTube if you're those shows, because, you're taking the short-term bag for what? I mean, YouTube's never going to shell out that kind of money on a contract type basis. We haven't even seen what these deals are worth yet for Barstool. That being said, like, YouTube is just the way you connect with your audience and you build community. You could interact with them. Um, and for us, I'm a free YouTube guy. I work in advertising. So I need to see all of the different types of ads because I think there's a huge opportunity. And I think more and more brands are going to start spending money on YouTube. And these shows are going to blow up monetization wise in 2026 when you could start dynamically inserting ads onto the YouTube platform. So that is more money for these shows. That's more advertising spend that brands are going to spend there. So like, I don't know. I don't get it. And to me, it's a big FU to the fans. Like, you know, I have another brother that is a YouTube premium subscriber. That being said, he listens to all his music and all of his podcasts on YouTube with all the other shows and all the other channels that he watches. He's probably not going to listen to Pardon My Take anymore. And once again, he's been listening for 10 years because this is a big slap in the face. This is basically saying we don't care about this audience that is paying, you know, 19, 20 bucks a month for YouTube Premium, and then all of the people that aren't paying anything because they can't afford or don't want to pay for all of this streaming war nonsense. We all flock to podcasts and flock to free content after, you know, decades of spending hundreds of dollars on cable TV and be interrupted by commercials. Like, so I said the golden era of streaming is dead. And this further submits it. This is the biggest show in sports podcasting history is now going to go behind a paywall for the video side. Yeah, you could probably still listen for free on Spotify and Apple, which is great. But that's why I feel like Spotify is involved in this, and Spotify is not going to sit back and say, hey, yeah, go ahead and have those millions of listens that you get on the audio only platform without us getting a cut of that. I don't believe, I just think that they're facilitating this somehow, some way, shape, or form. If you just look at what Spotify has done in the last year and a half or two, trying to pivot into video. Now there's thumbnails on the Spotify platform. They're trying to make it more like podcast discovery better, more algorithmic discovery. They finally got me. I finally found a show a few months ago, you know, through their algorithm. But that has been the biggest complaint of every single podcaster is Apple and Spotify do a terrible job of recommending shows to you and recommending your show and getting people to watch your show. And it's horribly frustrating to have an audio only show in 2025 if you're not an influencer already. If you don't have a massive audience to start a show from scratch. It's nearly impossible to get people to listen to it because they don't know how to find it. And it is not a, you know, click to watch platform like YouTube is, or even Netflix is for that matter. And so I'm just I'm a little sad today, but also at the same time, like, we knew this was coming, like the consolidation. At the same time, Netflix is in a, you know, bid to buy Warner Brothers, which is HBO, with Paramount right now. And it's just like we saw the consolidation and we saw the monopolizing coming. I don't even know if that's a word, coming from a mile away. And I think it's finally here. And it sucks because everybody's getting paid. The creators are getting paid. You know, these multi-billion-dollar companies are getting bigger and fatter. But you know who actually, you know, pays the price of all of this is the consumer and the viewer. And I think once again today, that's how I feel is, oh, great for the show. They got some big deals. Great for Barstool. Awesome. But like, as the viewer, I'm pissed. I might not ever watch that show or even listen to that show on Spotify just out of principle. I think from a PR standpoint, it's terrible. I mean, same with The Ringer. Like, I haven't watched a Bill Simmons podcast. I haven't even watched Dissect, which is my favorite music podcast, in months because I was getting that on YouTube. And once they left, like, I only have a few baked in shows on Spotify that I listen to on Spotify now. I've migrated most of my podcast consumption to YouTube, and I don't know. I just think it's going to be really hard to beat Google and beat YouTube, and that's where I look at these deals, and I think they're taking a massive gamble, The Ringer and Barstool, going this route. I mean, just look at the Barstool Invitational or the Internet Invitational that was put on by Bob Does Sports, Barstool, um, Good Golf. Like, this was YouTube golf at its core, and people loved it. People were commenting, freaking out, like this was the most watched golf event of the year, damn near. And it was the moment in golf, and it set a precedent. Like, why not double down where your audience already is? Instead, you're asking people to pretty much reinvent how they consume content, especially podcast content. And maybe that is the long term bet that I'm missing here. But I would put all my eggs in the YouTube basket as opposed to working with a streamer. Like, I don't watch Netflix shows anymore. I am pretty much predominantly a YouTube consumer. I think TV shows need to be flocking to YouTube because the barrier of entry, like, I don't want to pay for Netflix. I don't think the programming is that much better on Netflix these days than it is YouTube. And, I don't know. I'm so frustrated at those two companies because I like a lot of the talent that they have. And um like, this only pertains to 3 shows of Barstool. Really the only 3 shows of Barstool that I give a shit about. I don't I'm recently became a bigger hockey fan this year because of the San Jose Sharks. And so I listen to Spittin Chiclets here and there. Ryan Russillo has been my favorite knower of ball basketball wise since 2013, 2014, when I was watching ESPN every single day. And then Pardon My Take is one of the main reasons why I'm working in media and why I've continued to work in media and why I've advocated for new media. And this just feels very anti new media. This feels like a modern legacy move because Netflix is really pretty much recreating, a lot of these large streamers are recreating what we all hated and we all were against, which was traditional broadcast and cable and all that shit. And so I don't know, very, very interesting. But I think my main takeaway is I think Spotify has his hands all in this deal, and I think there's something bigger coming. And if there's not, and this is just the new video gamble is to go put your stuff on Netflix, then shit, I might be wrong, but I'm just so bullish on YouTube, and I'm so bullish on supporting creators that don't want to always put their stuff behind a paywall. Like, I just, there's something about that community that's, I don't know. I just, there's something about it that's raw and authentic and makes you feel like you're a part of something. As soon as you go to a Netflix, to Amazon, to Apple TV, I get like, I just feel like you're selling out, and I feel like you're being a part of that legacy, which is fine. Do what you got to do. You might have lost a fan here today. Pardon my take, and Ryan Russillo and Spittin Chiclets. Maybe not. We'll see. We'll see how this shakes out in the next few weeks of my own consumption. From the business standpoint, though, I'm very intrigued how this is play out. Like, I would love to see the Ringer numbers pre YouTube or pre YouTube Exodus, and now I would love to see their Netflix numbers because I have not one time watched any Ringer content or programming since it's been on Netflix. And I'm not the biggest Ringer fan, so I'm probably not the right person for this. But as far as these 2 shows, Pardon My Take and Ryan Russillo, which I mostly consume in Spotify anyway, but out of principle might not consume either just because I'm upset for all the YouTube fans out there. So I don't know. Excited to see how it all plays out. Disappointed in the result today, and as a fan, I'm disappointed, but we'll see. But like I keep reiterating, I'm gonna pin this video or at least reference this video in 6 months, 12 months, 18 months when I do think that Spotify and Netflix will have some official merger. And you'll be able to get audio content on Netflix, or I don't know how it's all going to shake out. Is Netflix going to have its own audio platform? That was where my mind first originally went, was Netflix is just going to, launch a podcast app. I don't think they're too late in the game to do that now. So who would be the next biggest partner that would allow them to partner? It'd probably be Spotify, given the deals that have just taken place with them. So Only time will tell, but that's my take on it. Yeah. Thanks for tuning in to Because the Media with Caleb Hudson. Peace.